Facebook Live. We're really excited to have you today. Always, we are joined by Dawn Dancer, our Director of Marketing. Say hello, Dawn.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you, Dawn. Dawn will be moderating as she always does. So as we proceed through this presentation, if you guys have questions, type them in the chat. We will be glad to answer all of your questions while we're here today. I'm so glad that you're joining us. Again, Eric Alarid with Tilson Homes, part of Tilson's fourth generation. We are a fourth generation family owned and operated build on your lot custom home builder. So we build all over the state of Texas for the most part. And today we're going to be talking about kind of the things you need to know when you're going to choose a custom builder. Now, this is whether you're going to choose us or somebody else, doesn't matter, but these are things you should consider when you're thinking about building a custom home specifically on your own piece of property, because it does work a lot different when you're building on your own land versus building on land owned by a developer or a builder. So we really are grateful you guys are joining us. We do record these and we post them over to YouTube, but if you want to participate in the live questions, you do need to be here for that. So grateful for all of you that are here. If you have questions as we proceed, please type them up there. Dawn will stop me and we will answer questions as we go. Before we get started, I did want to spend at least a moment just trying to remind everybody, while we are in a really different time than most of us have ever dealt with, that do carve out time to make some memories. Okay, I mean, you're not going to be able to get this time back. So if you have time to spend with your kids, I'd scoop mine out. This is the part of the fifth generation of Tilson Homes. We snuck away a little bit, played a little hooky from their Zoom school, and went fishing. And before everybody gets upset about the undersized largemouth bass you see there, it was on a private lake on private property. And we have been instructed by a wildlife biologist, we need to thin out a couple of these ponds in particular. So anyway, we are working with a fish stocking company. Actually, it's a customer of ours, Todd Overton Fisheries up in Centerville, Texas. So if you got pond management, lake management, you got questions about all things pond and lake related, fish related, particularly in Texas, reach out to Todd Overton. He can help you out. He's doing some really good stuff for us. So anyway, we got some fishing in. They're learning how to play with sharp knives and fillet the fish. So take some time and make some memories with your family, because again, you're not going to be able to get this time back. So without further ado, let's get into what in the world we're talking about and why should you listen to us? Well, again, whether you're going to be building with us or somebody else, that's not what this presentation is about. This one particularly is about what you need to know when you're looking at a custom builder. So Tilson, we've been doing this for the better part of 90 years. We're 88 years in. And so we founded in 32. So we were founded actually in the height of the Great Depression. So we know what it's like to run on lean times. We've built well over 40,000 homes across the state of Texas. And approximately a family a day moves into their new Tilson home. So we've been doing custom homes on people's land, specifically in rural parts of Texas, for the better part of a century. So we haven't always done it right all of the time. Okay, we make mistakes like everybody else, but we've learned an awful lot over the better part of a century, and we want to share that with you today. So broadly speaking, here are the things that we're going to talk about today. And these are things that we believe it's important for you to consider when you're going to choose someone to build your land, and that's to build on your land rather. So trust and integrity, we'll speak to all these, but reputation, experience, pricing and financing, what type of designs, how flexible are they on those designs? Can they be customized? What type of construction materials do they use? How in the world do you know this thing's being built to code? How do you get that peace of mind with third-party inspections? And then everything's great. That's all wonderful. The house is built. And then what does it look like afterwards? What happens after the home is built, and how are you supported as the customer while you're living in your forever home? Because everybody's happy as long as everything's working great. It's when things maybe aren't working perfectly. What's that remedy look like? So we are going to get into every single one of these. The first one, of course, is trust and integrity. Now, I don't really care if it's building a home or you're talking about retirement or you're buying a car or whatever it is. If you're sitting across the desk from somebody and you're kind of getting that uneasy feeling that I'm not really jiving with this person, or I don't really feel comfortable, I don't really trust this person, you need to stop right then and there and either reset the expectations of the conversation and say, hey, maybe I'm on a different page and you start over, or you need to leave. Because there are only more decisions to make. It only gets more emotionally involved because it is your dream home. It is your forever home. So trust and integrity is at the top of the list of things to consider. If you get an uneasy feeling, I would recommend not proceeding, quite frankly. So you need to know that you can trust this person, not just to do what they say they're going to do. I mean, that's permission to play. That's league minimum. What needs to happen is when unexpected things occur, and let me tell you, folks, in the 7 to 9 to 12 months that this thing is going to go on, from the design and pre-construction things that have to happen, and then construction itself, there's going to be things that pop up that weren't expected, or even mistakes get made. A window's going to get broken, a cabinet's going to get dropped, a phone call's not going to get returned. Something's going to happen, and all you might have at the end of that is, do I trust that this person is looking out for me and has my best interest in mind and at heart? So anyway, that's something to very much think about when you're sitting across the desk from them. So make sure you're working with someone that you feel comfortable that's going to get the job done right. And it's a really important part of the conversation. It really is fundamental and foundational in what we're going to be doing. So anyway, moving on from that, reputation and experience. So this seems like a pretty simple one, but I want to go into some detail here. So how long have they been in business? Obviously, that's something to think about. How long have they been doing this custom home building thing when you're looking at custom home builders? Number of homes that they've built is an important thing, but even more specific than that, how many homes have they built in your area? So what's their experience in your area? It's one thing if they're building in a they're doing some production building in a metropolitan area, your Austin, Houston, San Antonio, Dallas, and now they're branching out into building on your lot. Okay, well, you don't want to be the first one that they try to do that with. So something to consider. Have they ever done custom on your land before? Or is this something new, or they're dabbling into it? You're going to see that as, if residential construction slows down. We saw this in 2008 when this happened. A lot of the production subdivision guys want to get out of production subdivision and into on your lot. And it's a different ballgame. So ask them how often they do that. Quality of the homes that are built, obviously, you need to be able to walk through some of their homes. You don't want to just go into a storefront or something like that and say, this is how it's going to be. You want to be able to walk physically through the product that they build and ask questions about why they use what they use. And then finally, the reputation in the community and with subcontractors, actually, which is an interesting thing to think about. But, what they're saying to you as the customer, but you want to be sure, what's the relationship like with their independent contractors? Do they pay on time? Do they treat them well? Are they fair to them? Do they give proper expectations on the quality of work that they expect? So, right now, guys, we're really, really lucky to be here. All of us are. And what we're going to see is a lot of out-of-state builders are going to see Texas as the land of opportunity. Okay, they're going to come running down here. They always do. Be sure you're dealing with someone who not only has home building experience, but experience in the area you're building. If things go different than what you expected, for instance, what's the remedy look like? Ask these questions. Say, hey, what happens if we disagree about something? How's that rectified? How do we remedy that? Because, who's at the top? Who's going to make those decisions? Where are they located? Are you going to deal with somebody in Arkansas? Are you going to deal with somebody in Georgia? Are you going to deal with some franchisor in Tampa, Florida or something? Tilson ownership and leadership is all around the state of Texas. We can get across the state in 3 or 4 hours to a job if we have to. So ask for references specifically in your area. If you're building in a rural area, ask your builder for references there, not just somebody 200 miles away. Also, something to keep in mind, and this is with all things, by the way, online reviews are a hot topic of late, and not just for home builders. This is the whole world. And I would recommend to you that be very thorough as you're going through reviews, both positive and negative, and make sure that who you're reading the review from is an actual customer, that they actually went through the process with that particular entity, whether it's a builder or car dealership or whatever, because it's very, very easy to game the online review system. And there's third-party companies out there that you can pay to put positive reviews up there. You can get friends and family and employees and all that. So just take it with a grain of salt. Okay. Best thing to do is talk to somebody mouth to mouth with a phone call that actually did this. That's the best thing to do, honestly. So we want to stop here, Dawn, and see if we have any questions that I can answer.
Sure. Let's start with Michelle's question.
Okay.
She'd like to know, what are we doing to support our customers who are currently under contract and maybe worried about starting their build right now?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a great question. Michelle, thank you for asking that. So first and foremost, we want to be, we're in communication with our customers, finding out, how they're doing. Obviously, it's going to be a very personal situation for people. If they have an economic situation going on, a job loss or a furlough or something like that happening, certainly we're going to be as transparent as possible with our customers, and in return, it'd be in your best interest to be as transparent as possible with us, and the lender if there's a lender involved. So I know we're doing some things before houses go to construction. We're reaching out to customers kind of one more time and saying, hey, how's everything looking? How's your life going? How's your job going? And just making sure. But for the most part, our customers are letting us know, very few of them, but a few, that, hey, I'm a little nervous right now, but don't want to stop anything. Just kind of want to put it on hold. But we're not seeing that very, very much, Michelle. Thank you for asking that. But we are, the lending market is still there for the way we do business, because all of our loans are backed by the secondary market, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac backed loans. So there's nothing shady or underhanded about that. No in-house financing. I'd steer clear of that right now in an uncertain economic time. But yeah, that's the main thing. And of course, the ones that are under construction, in communication with our building superintendents and our VPs of construction to be sure those are moving along. But yeah, if you got questions or something that you're concerned about, call your sales consultant or get a hold of a VP of sales, and we'll be glad to help you through anything we can. Great question.
Great. Avelia has a question about financing a home if they're reporting their taxes with an ITIN number.
Yeah, that's going to be a very specific lender question. So I do know that Fannie Mae, FNMA has a protocol for working with folks with ITIN numbers, which is something in lieu of a social security number. We have done them in the past. So, but that's certainly very, very specific to what type of loan program you would actually be falling under. So that's going to depend on debt to income ratio, credit scores, equity position, and all of those things would go together combined with that question. That I'd really rather defer that to a registered mortgage loan originator, a loan officer. But it can be done, yes.
Okay. John Weeks is asking normal build time from contract to move-in.
Well, John, that's a great question. It varies quite a bit, actually, depending on the customer, their preparedness, the conditions of the property, how prepared the property is, and where that property is located. If it's in a city, if it's in the county, if it's in a deed-restricted subdivision that has a POA or ACC approval, has it already been cleared? Is it not cleared? So we've done some of these Facebook Lives with customers that it took 7 months for the total time, and we've done some where it took 12 months for the total time. So, I mean, the average is probably somewhere between 9 to 11 months, but of total time, construction is a larger portion of that. But from contract to move in, roughly 9 to 11 months. Could be as fast as 7. Could take a year or more. It just depends on the customer, quite frankly. Great question.
Okay. Then Nikisha is asking about specific areas in Houston where we build.
So Nikisha, at this time, we actually do not build inside the city limits of Houston. We refrained from that a little after Hurricane Harvey, when and still the requirements were very much in flux, very fluid. It was very difficult to pin down with the city what was required where, and so we pulled back and stopped building inside the city limits of Houston. We do build in unincorporated areas of Harris County, but not in the city of Houston. But there's all kinds of areas in the city of Houston where you can build. I would definitely check into the flood requirements. That's a big, big deal. Particularly when it comes time to get your home insured. it's a very complicated process.
Okay, great. And then we have another question from John. John, he's asking about our financing interest rate.
Oh, great question, John. We actually don't have a financing interest rate. The good news is Tilson does no construction loan whatsoever. So we actually loan you the money for the construction part of the process anyway at zero. We let you use our money for free. And then whatever mortgage company that you choose, we do have a couple that we work with very closely and all the time, but it's going to be your 15 or 30 year fixed rate mortgage rates that you're seeing kind of everywhere else. It's not Tilson doesn't have a mortgage company. We are not a mortgage company. So whatever interest rates that you shop around and get, that's the interest rate that's going to be.
Great. And then one more question, and then we'll go ahead and continue on. Cynthia is asking, do we include site prep when we're cost to repair the land when we're doing the financing, for example, her sewage line?
All right. So the answer is some site prep is included. Yes, Cynthia, but not all of it included. So for instance, a sewage line in this case would not be included. Closer to 90% of our customers are going to be on a septic system of some sort. So they don't have city sewer. That's a great question. We do include, of course, your electrical line hookup, water line hookup to a certain amount of footage. And then the cost to prepare the actual site, physically prepare the site up to a certain amount of slope or out of level elevation wise on the site over the footprint of the home. Depending on the county in which you're building, it ranges from anywhere from 12 inches to probably close to 30 inches of site prep is included. So yes, the answer is some site prep's included, but the best thing to do is get specifically with a consultant that you're going to be building in the county of and get exactly what's included. But yes. All right. So y'all guys keep the questions coming. We're going to keep answering them. I'm going to move on to some more of the process now, specifically to pricing methodology. So there are a couple of different pricing methodologies that are used. Well, actually, there's really three major ones. So there's price per square foot, which we're going to talk about first. There's cost plus. And then there's upfront contract pricing. So let's deal with the 800-pound gorilla in the room first, and that is price per square foot, which, by the way, is the most misleading pricing method in all of home building. So I would highly encourage you, if someone's advertising price per square foot, you run the other way. As you're shopping or interviewing builders, be leery of asking price per square foot because you never really know what all's included. We're not comparing, cans of ranch style beans here at Target versus Walmart. There's a lot of things that go into building a home, hundreds of thousands of components that can be changed and different from builder to builder. So, this is a really simple example. We've got a little bit better example after this, but a simple one is just, take a 10 by 10 square building and a 50 foot by 2 foot square building. They are both 100 square feet of area, right? 10 by 10 is 100, 50 times 2 is 100. However, the first one, the top example here, is got 40 perimeter feet of exterior wall, right? And this one has 104 perimeter feet of exterior wall. So, sorry about that, folks. A bit of a technical difficulty. Get back to the price per foot example. And anyway, what you're looking at is at least 2.5 times more perimeter in this 50 foot by 2 foot. So we're talking interior wall, exterior wall, stone, stucco, whatever kind of masonry we're doing, sheetrock, insulation, man hours, waste, all those things. We're not even talked about plumbing fixtures, light fixtures, cabinetry, ceiling heights. Forget any of that stuff, folks. Just talking about perimeter. You've got 2.5 times more. So this one, the 50 by 2, is going to cost significantly more per square foot, which is why it can be very, very, very misleading. And then, so I would caution you against asking that. And the other one is, are they doing it by the square footage of the living area? Are they doing it by the square footage of slab area? Do they include garages and porches in the slab, but not in the price? So just ask all those questions, but we're going to talk about a better methodology. But just as a kind of drive the point home, I've got 2 examples here of basically 2,090 square foot homes. This is a beautiful design by David Wiggins. This is not one of our in our portfolio. I just found these on the internet, guys. Really, this was quick, so I could show an example. But this is a fairly complicated, 2,100 square foot design. We got an angled garage here, so there's a lot of waste or going on there with materials. You got large covered porches. We got multiple fireplaces. We got an outdoor kitchen. We got a lot of stuff going on, a lot of exterior detail. And then we've got another 2,000 or 2,100 square foot building. And, I know it's an extreme example, but the reality is you can have 2,000 or 2,100 square foot houses that are in fact this different inside and out, and price per square foot, they're not even on the same planet. So I would encourage you to ask much deeper questions than price per square foot, because it can just be so misleading. So instead of that, there's a couple other ways to look at pricing methods. One is cost plus. Now, this is typically your super high-end custom. There's nothing wrong with cost plus if you know what you're doing, if you know what you're getting yourself into. Cost plus is exactly what it sounds like. You and the contractor agree on a percentage of gross profit that they're going to get to take, and that's what you pay. You pay for the cost of everything plus their whatever gross percentage that you've agreed to, which means you get all this. They put the stone on the house, for instance, and you're like, I don't like that stone. Rip it all off and put on new stone. The builder's going to say, no problem, no harm, no foul, because you're paying for the cost of everything plus my markup. And so that's not one I would encourage for someone unless they've done this a lot. So the other thing to consider in contracts is cost overruns, right? So very simply put, a cost overrun is, a lot of builders will put in, both commercial and residential, particularly custom builders will put in, hey, look, we've agreed on a price with our framing contractor for X dollars per square foot to pay them, or X amount of dollars for lumber that we're going to pay. If our cost for that lumber or that labor goes up, whatever this number is that they put in the contract, 15, 20, in some cases 30%, they are allowed to go back to you and recoup that additional money at any time during the process. So be very, very leery of cost overruns that are put in contracts. We don't put them in ours. The Tilson way is we do a true fixed price or upfront contract price, which means it's a price that where all parties agree to a fixed price based on the plans that everybody's going to sign, an options addendum, color selection sheet that everyone's going to sign, and can only be amended or changed by a change order, which, by the way, has to be authorized and executed by everybody. So what you want is a true fixed price, knowing what the price of the home is going to be before you ever start construction. You don't want to be trying to figure this thing out while the house is under construction. That's how money gets wasted. So stay away from doing that. Next, we're going to talk about the financing part. How do you get this thing paid for? Well, 99% of custom homes are built with a construction loan. So what they're telling you is the builder needs the customer to go to some type of lending institution, whether it's a bank or mortgage company, and actually borrow the funds to build the home. So the builder doesn't have the financial wherewithal to build it. So they need you, the landowner, the customer, the homeowner, to borrow those funds, and they're going to take draws on that money. And again, there's nothing illegal about this. There's nothing unethical about this. This is how most custom homes all over the place are built. A lot of commercial buildings are built this way. The problem with them is you don't know how long it's going to take, all right? And you're paying for the interest that entire time. So that could be a real problem if you get to let's say a weather sticking point, for instance, right? Which no one can control that. A pandemic that no one can control. What happens to the construction loan in those situations? What happens if you get at odds with the builder? What's the resolution look like, and how long does that take, and who's paying the interest while it's out there? Well, you are. So anyway, the lender is going to pay that money to the builder as work on the house progresses, but you're going to pay that interest immediately. Either you're paying it as it's being taken out in monthly payments that are interest only, by the way, or that builder is putting all of them on what's is going to be at the end, at the closing cost on the permanent loan. So the interest is accruing, you're just not paying it yet. It's accruing, and you're going to pay it at the end of construction. So that's where the one down here at the bottom, the others require no payments during construction, roll it all to the final mortgage. Okay. If you see a 6 months, no payments, 12 months, no payments, you're not getting free money in a case like that. It's going to be all rolled into the mortgage at the end, or it's going to be, I've seen some cases where it's a 31-year mortgage. So they're just adding a year onto the loan, which is kind of like what this forbearance thing is that you're hearing about going on now. It is not the same as forgiveness. It is forbearance. So ask questions about how the financing works. The way we do it, we don't do a construction loan of any kind. We pay for the construction of your home using our own money. There's no need for you to borrow the money for us to build the home. You are going to qualify for the permanent loan for the actual for the permanent mortgage takeout is what you're going to qualify for. So just like you were going into a subdivision and buying a house, qualify for that home, or qualifying for a resale, exact same process with us. So there's no construction loan, there's no monthly payments, there's no down payment. If you have 10% equity, you got more money that's in your pocket, because construction loans, you're going to have 20, in some cases 25 or 30% down, not with us. And then the last thing, which you really can't put a dollar amount on, is the peace of mind knowing that the builder you're working with is financially sound enough to build the home and get paid when it's completely finished. So, because what a builder's telling you when they need a construction loan is they don't have the financial wherewithal to build this home and get paid at the end. And you may very well have a higher net worth than your builder. And that's something to consider, something to think about. Dawn, do we have any questions? We want to pause here for a second.
Yeah, we have a question from Matthew. He's asking if we have pre-planned design changes to account for ADA compliance in each model, or is that a custom change?
Okay, so that's a great question, Matthew. We have some things that we do fairly normally that they're not pre-planned design changes, because not all customers want the same thing. We do stop short of calling them ADA compliant. That is because that's a very specific set of rules and regulations and specifications set forth by the federal government. So we prefer to call them aging in place or universal design. But things like wider door openings, 3 foot wide, for instance, door open. I think ADA compliance is 2'8", 32 inches. But if you want to go up to 36-inch wide openings in all the places that we can, we don't charge to do that. If you want to put ramps going up to the thresholds, we have a way to do that. But no, they aren't pre-planned design changes for ADA compliance for each model, because again, most people don't actually want it full-on ADA compliant. They want some aging in place or universal design things going. In other words, although we've done some pretty extreme things. People that have to roll up in a wheelchair to a cooktop. We've done those kinds of things. But most people, when they're looking for the grab bars, wider openings, ramps, things like that, they're not looking quite that extreme of lowering countertops, making knee space below, everything like that. But we can and do accommodate those, but we don't have a one size fits all, which is why we don't call it ADA compliant. That's a very great question though, Matthew.
Great. Rachel is asking what models are available to view in the DFW area.
Okay, Rachel. Well, we've got 3 design centers in the DFW area in the Metroplex. We have one in Weatherford, where you got the Breckenridge and the Parker. We have one in Waxahachie, where we have the Whitney and the Fayetteville. And then we have one in McKinney, actually Melissa, just north of McKinney, across the street from Buc-ee's. It's a better landmark in Texas, where we have the Rockwall and the Crockett. So, and you can reach out to any of those design centers, set up an appointment. We'd be glad to give you a one-on-one tour of any and all of those model homes. I think I got them all right.
You did. Very good.
Take it.
And Michelle is asking if she has to use one of our plans, or can we design one for her?
All right, Michelle. Yeah, certainly bring us your ideas. You don't have to use one of our plans. We do build home. We do a few every year that is not one of our plans. We'll probably end up starting from a pricing perspective with one of our plans, just as some kind of a baseline to see where we're headed in that direction. But yeah, I mean, we build plans that if you were to put them alongside any of the homes in our portfolio, they don't look like any of the homes in our portfolio. So be glad to take a look at one for you.
And sometimes even when we built them from our portfolio, they don't look like our portfolio.
Oh, yeah, you're exactly right. Thank you, Don. Yeah, very rarely, in fact, will any 2 of them look the same. It's a great point.
Yes. All right, that is actually all the questions that we have right now. So we can
Brilliant. Well, we'll keep rolling, guys. Keep the questions coming in. We're going to answer them. We'll be here the entire time that you guys have questions. So moving on past our EasyBuy financing. So home designs and flexibility. The builder you're going to be working with, do they have a plan library of some sort that they can draw from? Kind of going back to the question we were just asked. Ask if they have a library that you can choose from. Are there limits to the design modifications they'll make? How flexible are they? We found, and we didn't even think about this till we started getting some of these questions on some of these Facebook Lives, but most builders charge for the plans. They charge you to design the plans. We do not. There are several that don't, but we don't charge you for the plans themselves, and we don't charge just for making a change. The only charge you're going to incur, if you have a charge, is going to be if you add something that wasn't already there. You're just going to pay the net difference. So if you added 3 feet onto the back of a covered patio, then you'll just pay for the additional 3 feet. But we don't charge you just for making the change. But we are 100% customizable. We don't charge those design fees like that, and we'll customize them however you choose to do it. And actually, you can join us week to week, and we have some of the other ones already saved, where we've been going in for the last 3 or 4 weeks and doing kind of a recap of a home that we designed and customized. So construction processes and materials. So what should you know when you're choosing a custom builder about the construction process, or what should you ask? Well, what type of foundation system are they used? How do they arrive at that design? What's the what's the method that they use? What materials are they use? What type of energy efficiency criteria do they meet, and who checks it out to make sure it's being done right? Whose responsibility is that, and how's that arrived at? So let's take a little deeper dive into the construction processes. So the very first thing that we're going to do, and I would encourage, regardless of who you're going to build your home, you need to have someone do a geotechnical investigation, because soil does vary from place to place, even on the same piece of property. Even if your parents built next door and they had this type of foundation, you still need to do a geotech investigation of some sort, or at least glean insight from a third-party engineer on what they know about the area. So we do that on every single foundation that we do. And we do it at no extra charge. We don't charge for the soil test or the geotechnical investigation. It's already in the price of every single one of our homes. So, because we got to have that to be able to design a proper foundation system. And then we take that data. The third-party engineer actually takes the geotechnical investigation data, designs a slab specifically to perform on your piece of property. So we want to know how it reacts to moisture, to lack of moisture. What are we going to do in a drought? What's it going to do when there's excess rain? How do we make sure we establish positive drainage all the way around it to ensure there's no water standing alongside the foundation? And because we really, really want you guys to have a reliable foundation. I know it sounds cliche, but it is the most important part of the home. Now, can you get carried away? Absolutely. You can over-engineer anything. But it can be done right in a very cost-effective way if you go through the right steps. So geotechnical investigation, and then have an engineer get their input and have them design it, and then build it to their design. That's the most important thing you could do. When it comes to framing, what type of frame materials does the builder use? The code does allow up to number 3 lumber. And so, number 1 would be the best, would be like furniture grade, cabinet grade. And then number 3 would be like utility grade or thereabouts. So you can go up to 24-inch on center. That's a little too much for us. We're going to use number 2 lumber with 16-inch on center studs and 19.2-inch on center joists and rafters. Gives us room for a little more insulation there in your attics, and still makes a really solidly built home. So that's a really important thing to us. Structural stability of the home. Okay, so what are they doing to make sure this thing is not going to rack back and forth over time, have a bunch of sheetrock cracks? So we wrap every home. Our roots are in the Houston area. It's where we started in 1932. We've built thousands and thousands of homes in places where there are hurricanes frequently, not just Houston, but the surrounding areas: Matagorda County, Brazoria County, Galveston County, all up and down, Chambers, Jefferson, all up and down the Texas Gulf Coast. And this is actually a requirement in those areas, the 7/16 OSB all the way around. We do it everywhere. I don't care if we're building a house on the other side of Possum Kingdom, on the other side of Junction, or up against the Gulf Coast. We're going to do a full OSB wrap because we really do believe in the way that it holds that house together well, keeps it from racking back and forth, and which is way better than just bracing the corners or doing one before let-ins. We really just prefer to do that. And then what do they do to combat moisture? Well, we use a DuPont Tyvek house wrap. So it keeps air and water out, but it allows vapor to escape, because you are going to have humidity that builds up. You know, if it's a 95 degrees outside and 72 degrees inside, just like a glass of iced tea, it's going to your house is going to condensate. That's okay, as long as there's a way that the builder has thought about to get that moisture out from inside those walls. And can keep it from getting inside the home ever. And then PEX water piping. So there's copper, there's CPVC, there's a couple of different things you could do for plumbing. We used copper for a long time. Well, we use CP. We've been around 90 years. We've used everything that's out there. What we've settled on of late is the PEX water piping, a cross-link polyethylene pipe. It is such a better performing material than anything else that's out there. You have way less joints with it because it is flexible. You can see in the picture here that it can be bent around corners. It can go between studs. There are still some joints, but nearly a third of how many there are would be with copper or CPVC. And everywhere you've got a joint is an opportunity, really two opportunities, or on either side of the joint, for failure. So we highly advise using PEX water piping. It's way less susceptible to freezing than copper or CPVC. It's way more flexible. So just, stands up to water, particularly hard water, a lot better than other pipes do. The mineral deposits don't stick to it as well, which is really good, particularly for our customers that are on water wells. Something to consider. Cabinetry, what type of cabinet offerings do they have? Are they flexible on what they can do with their styles, with their stains? So, that's something to all consider. I personally don't particularly like job finished cabinets. I don't mind them being job built. That's okay from time to time. I don't like painting them in the field. My aversion to that is simply, it's a job site. It's sawdust, there's sheetrock dust, there's tile dust, there's all kinds of stuff floating around in there that I don't want in the finish of my cabinets. So we like our cabinetry finished where they're built, where the boxes are built, in a paint booth, like a car would be, where it's a controlled environment, it's clean. They can use a much better application method. They can bake the finish on there, which makes it way more durable. But this is something that we really feel like is a big deal for the longevity of the performance of the home. So any questions about, let's see if we got that we can answer right this second, Dawn?
Sure, if you want to go ahead and do that. Greg and Martha are asking specifically about their lot and some plans that we have. They have a small lot that's only 50 feet wide. Do we have anything that would fit?
We do have a few, Greg, probably very few, probably only 2 or 3 of our designs that would likely fit on that. I don't have them off the top of my head here, but we do have a couple of designs that would fit on a 50-foot wide lot. What it's really going to depend on more than anything, Greg, is what the building lines are on the side. So you're saying you have a 50-foot wide lot, but also there's probably, hopefully 5-foot, but in some cases 10-foot building lines on the side that you can't build over. So in other words, just because we have a 50-foot wide lot to work with doesn't mean we have all 50 feet, right? You probably know that. So we may only have 30 feet to work with, or 40 feet, hopefully closer to 40 feet. Most of them I've seen that are 50-foot wide, they have 5-foot building lines. But sometimes if your lot is on a corner, it'll have like 5-foot building line on one side and then a 10-foot building line on the larger street. So if you have a survey that you could get us, one of our sales consultants would be glad to take a look at it, and we could find a home or alter one of our homes, customize one of our homes that will fit on a 50-foot wide lot. Yes, sir. Great.
And then Michelle is asking if we're able to build in vent water.
Yes. We up on 1097 north end of Lake Conroe. Absolutely. We've done that before, and it's been a while that I know of, but it doesn't mean we haven't done it recently. But I do know we have built-in bent water before. So.
JR is asking why the price is the same for a carport and an enclosed garage.
Great question, JR. We get that question quite a bit, in fact. So the answer is there's a lot of engineering that you really can't see that goes into the carport. So to do those large open spans that you can just drive underneath, there's a lot of engineered wood product, a lot of engineered lumber that goes up into the attic framing to make that happen, where you may only have like a concrete post every, some cases, every 16 or 20 feet to span that. Whereas with a garage, 2x4 walls are far, far less expensive. And we're still having to finish even the carport. So for instance, on a garage, you're getting sheetrock, which is fairly inexpensive. And on the garage, on the carport, we're having to, so let's go back. On a garage, we're only doing 3 sides because the house is already there. Well, on the carport, where you would be getting credit for the brick or stone that's going down that one side of the house that's going on the one side of the garage, now it's not anymore. Now the carport, we're still finishing that part of the house, and we're having to finish the carport. So the carport's going to have hardy on the underside. It's going to have finished stone post with a lot of engineered lumber that goes into being able to do those wide open spans. But yeah, it ends up being just about the same price to do a garage versus doing a carport. Mostly because 2x4s are pretty inexpensive.
All right, makes sense. Jessica is asking about the depth and height of foundations that are included in the price of the house.
Yep, Jessica, that's a great question. It is very specific to the county in which you're building, and even more so specific to your piece of property. So there is a kind of in the base price of every county, we do have what's included. So it would depend on, if it's Liberty County or Ellis County or Harris County or whatever, it's usually either 10 or 12 inches wide or 30 or 36 inches deep on the beams. And then on height, it's going to be 11 inches or 14 inches. It just really depends on the county in which you're building. It ranges because Texas is a big place and it's not all the same. Not all the soil is the same. The soil is very, very different. But we do have base design parameters for every single county across the state that a sales consultant at your local design center can help you with, and then whatever the engineer decides based on the geotechnical investigation. Great question, though, Jessica. Thank you.
Okay, Amber is asking about how many homes we've built in Matagorda County.
How many have we built total, or have we built a year? Total, I can't tell you a number. It's in the hundreds, maybe even 1,000. But we've got for sure anywhere between 10 and 15 houses a year that we build in Matagorda County. Some years will be more than that. Some years is probably as few as 6, and some years as many as 18 or 20. But yeah, a lot.
Okay. Lee is asking about flexibility on changing around walk-in closets and bath fixtures. She doesn't want her garden tub, but she doesn't want to lose that space.
Whatever you want to do. Yes, ma'am. You can absolutely have the flexibility to change whatever you want to do. The space is the space. So the difference would be if you're going from, let's say, a walk-in closet and converting that space into a shower, obviously tile is going to cost more than just finished sheetrock. But if you're deleting the garden tub, you're going to get credit for that from us. So you could use that money to maybe expand the shower, make it larger, or take the garden tub out and do a walk-in closet. You would just get a credit. But yeah, it's whatever you want to do with the house, Leah, for sure.
Okay. John is asking about price difference between brick and hardy plank.
All right. So hardy plank is going to traditionally cost less. I know you're saying shiplap hardy, which is just this horizontal hardy plank. So yeah, brick is always going to cost more than that. Between those two, so you got hardy plank. So horizontal hardy plank is your least expensive that we do. There are cheaper sidings out there, but we don't do them. The next one up would be kind of your board and bat hardy, which some of you've seen on some of our farmhouse designs where it's vertically done. So that would kind of be between the price of horizontal and then brick. So brick is going to cost more. A couple of reasons. Number one, you're pouring a 5.5-inch brick ledge, so the slab is a little larger. And then in addition to that, we've got to do, of course, the brick itself costs more money. The labor to put up masonry costs more because you're laying it brick by brick. So there's a lot more man hours involved in laying brick or laying stone than there is in the framer nailing up hardy plank siding. But great question.
And then Rocky is asking about soil tests before pouring the foundation.
So we do what we call, Rocky, is a geotechnical investigation. In most cases, that means a soil test. The only exception when we would not do a soil test is if when the engineer goes out to do their geotechnical investigation and the site is just rock, they'll dig what's called a test pit, sometimes with a skid steer or with a backhoe or some type of heavy equipment. And if it's just solid rock that they're building on, which does happen, then we're not going to do a 15, 20-foot, site bore of rock. It's rock. You're good. But in all other cases, yes, you're going to get 2 site bores inside the footprint of where the home is going to sit. And then they analyze the soil for the different, is it sandy loam and then clay and then rock and then whatever else is down there. So great question. But yes, we always do that before, not just before pouring it, before we even design the foundation. We're going to get a soil test of some sort.
Okay, great. I think that's all the questions for now. So
cool. Well, let's move on to windows and keep this train rolling, Miss Dawn. Thank you for doing that. You guys keep the questions coming. We'll answer all of them that we can as long as we're going to be here. So moving on, what type of windows does your custom builder use? So there's a lot of types of windows out there. We really, for this climate where we live around Texas, we really like the vinyl windows. We use an American-made vinyl tilt sash window. There are folks out there still using aluminum. It can, I don't know how you can do that and still pass the energy codes that are as rigorous as they are today, but I guess it can be done. Vinyl's a far better product, much better insulator, and really, really performs well. There's different colors that are offered. We use an American-made company. Actually, right now we're using a company that's here in Texas. Our windows are made on the south side of Dallas, Texas. So they have a limited lifetime warranty and double pane, low E glass. So we really like the way they perform. Next, the next most important thing to your windows in a house in Texas, in my opinion, the most important thing is your HVAC system. I mean, to me, there is no sweeter sound in the summertime than that compressor kicking on and blowing the cold air inside, particularly on a really, really hot day. So what happens? Well, we install Linux. So that's great. Linux is a good product. There's lots of good products out there. The biggest thing that goes into this is how is it planned for? We use, our HVAC company uses a software called Manual J. And in a nutshell, what that does is that we put in all this data. So we put in what direction the house is facing, what the latitude and longitude of the house are, so that they can gather the average high temperature, average low temperature, extreme high, extreme low. They have to put in square footage of glazing or glass, the windows on the home. They have to put in how much square footage, obviously, ceiling heights, because they have to know how much cubic footage we're talking about. All these calculations, what type of insulation that we're using, what type of windows that we're using, what's the solar heat gain coefficient on the windows. All this data gets put into a computer system, and that computer system spits out a report that actually breaks down by room how many cubic feet per minute, how many cubic feet every single room is going to need. They lay out where the ductwork's going to go. They lay out where the return airs are going to be. They even lay out where the exhaust fans are going to be, where the fresh air intake is going to be. All that's planned out before we ever even go to construction. That's how you make an efficient HVAC system. It cannot be something that's haphazard anymore. It's like, oh, we'll do 1 ton per 500 square feet. Like, that doesn't work anymore. As tight as the homes are supposed to be built today, you have to make a plan when you're going to design an HVAC system. There's a lot of science that goes into that. In addition to that, we actually also even do energy rating. We'll talk about that after a little while, but there's 2 climate zones that we operate in. Climate zone 2, which is the one that will be further to the south, closer to, and these are as designated by the EPA. These are not something that we dreamed up. But for the most part, Southeast Texas is in climate zone 2. Even most of the hill country is in climate zone 2, not all of it, but we use a R38 in the attic and an R15 in the walls, which both exceed code. The code simply requires R30 in the attic and R13 in the walls. And then we use a radiant barrier decking included. Some builders will offer that as an upgrade. We really like the way it performs and reduces wear and tear on the HVAC equipment, so much so that we use it standard. But any kind of radiant barrier is fine. It could be LP Tech Shield. It could be Georgia Pacific Titanium. It could be Eclipse. As long as it blocks 97% of the sun's radiant heat, we say go with it. It's a good product. Climate Zone 3, where we build the rest of our homes. further to the north and the west. So part of the western and northern part of the hill country, then all the way up into North Texas, of course. We have chosen to do open cell spray foam as the included standard energy piece. This helps us meet the air changes per hour, the tightness of the energy code. And then in every home that we build that has open cell spray foam, we do a dehumidifier. That's not an option. We're going to put that in. Even in what people consider to be a drier climate, when you're sealing that house up with that open cell spray foam, you got to give it away to get the humidity that builds up out of that house. We do offer open cell spray foam as an option in climate zone 2, but and it's pretty reasonable, actually. It's not very expensive at all. On the exterior, we are doing a complete hardy zone system, and this actually goes into effect quite a bit. People a lot of times just think of the siding itself, which is an important part of the hardy zone system, but the complete system is your fascia, your corner boards, your brick frieze. So all these trim pieces that you see, the soffit, the let's call it a lamb's leg here, all of these pieces that go in, we use a complete James Hardie system. All of this is going to be Hardie. And when we do that, you get Hardie's full 30-year warranty, which we think is a really, really phenomenal deal and a really phenomenal product. I really like the way it performs. In climate zone 2, you're going to have this pre-drilled ventilated soffit so that airflow can do passive through the attic. Finally, third-party inspections. I want to camp out here for just a little bit, not too long. Be respectful of everybody's time, but third-party inspections. Okay, Texas is a big place, and most unincorporated areas, in fact, no counties that I'm aware of require third-party inspections. In other words, there's no county building inspector for the most part in Texas. In fact, I don't know of any. There might be one or two in the super highly populated areas, but not that I'm aware of. So if you're in a city, this is a different story. There's a city building inspector, building department, all that. But I'm talking about unincorporated areas of the county where we build 91% of our homes. Most builders in those areas do not have the homes inspected because they don't have to. They tell the customer that everything's going to be okay, and the customer, either they know or they don't, or they trust them. Go back to that trust and integrity. Trust is one thing. Integrity is a different deal. You got to have both. Tilson requires third-party inspections on every single one of our homes throughout the construction process. We have no issue with another set of eyes looking at our homes. So much so that we actually include, it's included in the price of every single home. We're going to have third-party inspections. And by the way, we don't pass every single time. There's stuff we have to go out and fix. Framing stuff, electrical stuff, plumbing stuff. That's okay. That's what the inspection's there for. It's there to keep us in check and to protect the homeowner. That's what it's all about. So what's interesting is, of course, you got the ones that we do during construction, right? Your pre-pour, before the foundation's poured, the engineer's going to take a look at it, make sure everything's done the way they said it was going to be done. Frame, electrical, HVAC, plumbing, insulation, energy tests, finals, all that's happening. But even before we ever go to construction, we do an energy plan review. We do that manual J calculation. We send that stuff to an engineer. All of that is planned out before we ever go to construction so that we know what we're supposed to be executing. We know what we're supposed to be doing out there before we start. And then we have it inspected by third parties to make sure that it was done that way. And the warranty company that we use requires a lot of these third-party inspections, which I think is smart. I think it's a great idea. So, but ask the question, when you're shopping around for custom builders who's going to build a home on your land, particularly if you're in a rural area, how are you assured that it's being built to code? What does the builder do to make sure that's happening? So definitely something to consider. And then finally, we talked about what about after the fact, right? We take great pride. I personally take great pride in our warranty department. It's actually where I started at Tilson, is in our warranty department. So it's near and dear to my heart. And it made a big impact on me as a young person when my father and grandfather had us go work in the warranty department first. And that was, you cannot forget who the most important person in this whole process is, and that's the customer, in building their dream home. So, we do the best we can on your property to build the best home that we possibly can. And if and when we fall short, you have a Tilson warranty department there to help make it right. You're not calling some third-party contractor you've never met before. You're not calling a call center that's going to answer the phone. A Tilson employee answers the phone when you call our warranty department, and a Tilson employee shows up in a Tilson vehicle to fix your Tilson home. So that's a really big deal to us. But just find out from whatever builder you're going to be using, who handles the warranty. Is it on the responsibility of the building superintendent? Is it a third party that brokers that service? Who's going to show up and fix this thing a year, 2, 3, 5, 7 years down the road if something goes wrong? Nobody wants anything to go wrong, guys. But we've been around long enough to know that accidents happen. Okay. And when they do, how does the builder make it right? What do they do to do that? So ask those questions. Now, speaking of asking questions, Dawn Dantzler, do we have any questions at this point of the presentation?
We definitely do. So let me cue those up for you. All right. Natalia is asking if there's an option to bolt down the trusses.
Okay, so bolting down trusses. Well, number one, we don't use trusses. Trusses are factory built. There's nothing necessarily wrong with them other than they assume perfection. So we don't use trusses. Everything we do is stick built, custom built. It's cut on site. But so we do bolt down the frame. That's required. We use J bolts in the concrete slab. Those are all bolted down. Your toe plate is bolted down. What she may be asking about, Dawn, is maybe hurricane clips or straps or something like that. And that is done obviously in all windstorm areas, windstorm 1, windstorm 2, and and seaward. But there are a few other places that require it. I think like City of Needville requires it. City of Livingston, of all places, requires it. And I know that Onalaska just went through a rough patch this week. But you can bolt down the attic framing, which I think is what you're asking about. That will help with like hurricane force winds, 75. I think they're rated for windstorm. It's 120 mile an hour gust for 3 seconds. So it's not a sustained wind rating, which is a common misconception. There's nothing that's going to help you for a tornado. Nothing out there. In as far as the wood framing is involved, there are shelters and things like that you can build or add or install, but there's no wood framing that you're going to do that's going to prevent tornado damage. The force is just too strong for too long. So, but there are options. There are straps and clipping methods out there that you can clip down the attic framing if you want to do that.
Okay. And Ken asked this question when you were talking about the manual J and planning out the HVAC. He's asking how important the facing direction of the home is.
Yeah, Ken, it's important. It matters, and it matters more depending on how much glazing is on that side of the home. So obviously, we're most concerned with the southwest side, right? In this part of the world where we're building, the most important thing is combating that hottest part of the long, hot summer day. And how much glazing is exposed to that. So that's why how important is it? I mean, it's important enough where they ask for it, and we enter it every time, and because it helps them orient the home, and they have sun patterns through the years that they put into this computer algorithm that tells them how much air is going to need to be pumped into those rooms to keep it. If it's 95 degrees outside and you want it 72, how much air is going to have to flow in there to make that happen? So yeah, great question, but I'd say pretty important.
Okay. John is asking if we can install a freestanding wood-burning stove or fireplace.
I recommend against it. We've had customers that have done it. It's not. Yeah, we don't offer any, John. It's very difficult to pass the freestanding ones. Make it very difficult to pass the energy code. It's not impossible to pass it, but it does make it very, very difficult. I just don't know of many products that are out there on the market that will pass the energy code that are the freestanding type. But we have done some prep areas for customers where we do the stone, base and stone along the walls or things like that, and then they've come in after the fact and done that. But it's not something that we recommend doing or have seen a lot of success in putting installed.
Okay.
Also, one thing I want to go back, it's not something that's going to really heat your home. It just, those days are kind of past where you could use a fireplace or wood burning stove to heat the entire house. The houses are too tight these days, or too tight anymore. You really need to run, you're gonna have to run that HVAC system, the heater, especially that time of year, the heat pump, into returns working in all the bedrooms to make that airflow happen. Good question.
Yeah, the houses are so tight, there's not enough oxygen to actually burn.
You can't get enough fuel.
Fire.
That's exactly right.
You'd have to open a window, which defeats the whole purpose.
You're gonna have to open a window. Yeah, you're gonna have to open a window to make one burn.
Robert is saying he's currently looking for land to build a home. He's asking if we could come out there and kind of give him some advice on what we see as far as out of level or extra clearing.
Yeah, Robert, great question. So the answer is, broadly speaking, yes, we can. We do like that you have it narrowed down to maybe one or two that you're looking at. And then the other thing is we're going to have to get the landowner's permission, of course. We can't just go traipsing around on a piece of property. But if you can get their permission and we can set one or two up with one of our stakeout superintendents or one of our consultants, we'd be glad to come out there and take a look. It's going to be hard to say if it's really, really thick. It's going to be really tough to shoot the grades on it to get that laser level out there to be able to see how much the property slopes if it's heavily wooded. So that's still going to kind of be I don't know until it's cleared, and I doubt that the landowner is going to let you clear it, or they're going to clear it before they'll let you buy it. So, but yeah, if you've got one or two that you'd like for us to come look at, we'd be glad to come out there and look at them with you. Absolutely.
Great. Ken is asking on the topic of third-party inspectors, who are they if they're not from the county?
Great question. So if the builder's not using them, it's nobody, Ken. So there are no county inspectors, like we said. There's no government employees out there that are going to be inspecting the homes in unincorporated areas. There are third-party companies. We use one called DPIS Builder Services. But there are other ones throughout the state of Texas. DPIS does a lot for us. DPIS Engineering. They also do a lot of our energy compliance. But yeah, there are engineering firms out there that do third parties. It's not like your Trek inspector folks. These are going to be like usually some type of an arm of an engineering firm that does that. But yeah, DPIS is one that we use quite a bit.
Okay. Angelica's asking if we use the same color light bulbs in all of our homes, and if we know which light bulb it is.
Oh, Angelica, you've discovered one of my hot buttons. The answer is I'd like for us to. I'd like for us to use the same color light bulbs in all of our design homes. I'd like for us to use the same color light bulbs in my own house. I feel like when you go to buy new LED bulbs on the aisle in your big box stores, you got to be real careful about what color you're grabbing: soft white versus bright white versus daylight versus whatever. So we try to use soft white, but in a lot of times, particularly with LED, it's measured in degrees Kelvin, which is really weird. But so look at the degrees Kelvin. It can be measured in lumens or degrees Kelvin. We want something less than 3,000 Kelvin, closer to 2,600, 2,700 degrees Kelvin, which is kind of that warmer yellow, kind of not yellow, but something not bright white. I don't like white light, but hope that helps.
Okay. Tim is asking how we choose our subcontractors.
Great question, Tim. So they got to be insured for sure. We are going to look at their work. We're going to go inspect. If they've never worked for us before, we're definitely we're going to have to see several products that they put on the ground. We're going to evaluate those. We're going to punch them out, which simply means we're going to make checklists of what we'd like to see different, and if they're willing to do those kind of things. And then we check credit references. We're going to check, of course, we're going to have a W-9 and all that kind of good stuff for all of them. We're going to check all those numbers out with the proper taxing entities to make sure everybody's up to snuff on their IRS income tax and all that kind of good stuff. But the main thing is inspecting their work, and then sitting down with them, interviewing, going over several plans, finding out what they do in certain situations. But really same way you'd interview a builder, go look at the product on the ground, quite frankly.
Okay, great. Lee and Cynthia actually have very similar questions. So they're asking about time frames. So Cynthia's asking for the full time frame from start to finish. And Lee is asking specifically from the moment she writes us a check until when she moves in.
Thank you, Dawn, for clarifying. So yeah, Cynthia, so it's a great question. When someone writes us a deposit check, and then that's kind of when we start the clock. A lot of our prospects and customers, like you're asking, Cynthia, what's the time frame? We have found that sometimes, particularly if people are not pleased with the time frame, they've actually started counting back to when they first came into one of our design centers, which is interesting. That's when they think the time starts. But as far as the customers are concerned, the time starts when we enter into an agreement and money changes hands, when a deposit is put on a home. That total time is typically 9 to 12 months. It really depends on the property. It depends on the customer, their preparedness, how prepared the property is for construction, and any changes that are done, how many changes are done on the home through the process. We have some that are done the whole time frame from the time that they give us a deposit to the time they move in, 6-7 months. We have some that it's a year or more. It just really depends greatly on the customer and the location. Your cities and your deed restricted subdivisions are going to drive that time frame up a little. Some cities drive it up a lot. The subdivisions usually drive it up at least 30 days or so because they have an architectural review process. It has to go before a committee. You have to gather some exterior colors and show them, that kind of good stuff. But it depends greatly on your specific project and exactly where you're building. But we've had 7 to 14 months. I know that sounds wild, but that really is the range. Which is why it's so critical that y'all are watching these kinds of things and getting your ducks in a row, because everything you can do, every piece of information you can be armed with makes the process go that much faster, that much smoother. So that's why we do these. It's only better for us and you if it goes faster.
All right. Lee is asking, she has a lot of trees that she'd like to preserve on her build site. How would we deal with this?
So yeah, we would like to keep the trees too. The trees are beautiful. They're very hard to replace and make that big again. So we have a couple of things. I mean, obviously they have to be outside of the footprint of the home. No question there. So all the trees and stumps have to be outside of the actual footprint of the home. Outside of that, the engineer becomes the kind of the default. What we can say is like, hey, look, this 18-inch oak tree, this 24-inch pecan tree, this 12-inch, red oak. The customer very much wants to keep these. Tell us what we're going to need to do from a foundation standpoint to not interfere with those, and that they won't interfere with the foundation. So that's when sometimes you'll see a barrier beam used or hard points, different things like that, where we'll go deeper down on the foundation on that particular side of the home to keep, because what you find about trees is they draw a lot of water, a whole lot of water. And if you have a bunch of trees, particularly large trees around the home, the engineer is going to take into consideration how many gallons per day of water those trees draw out of the ground and how your foundation is going to perform. And so they take measures. But that's how we do it. We default to the engineer. We want you to be real transparent with us at the stakeout appointment, which trees are really important for you to keep. And then we relay that information. I mean, we'll literally write 18-inch oak, 24-inch pecan, 13-inch pine, and give that to the engineer, and then they design around them.
Okay, great. Natalia has another question about safe rooms. Is there an option for brick built or third-party option?
Yeah, there are third-party options. And I don't like the idea of a safe room because I'm not an engineer and I don't build them. There is a company that we've used. There's a company called Family Safe. They're actually out of Oklahoma. That we've had several customers use them, and they're one-piece steel units. I mean, they come in the frame stage and they set the unit in and bolt it to the slab, and then we build the home around it. They have different sizes. I've seen those used in a couple of houses. I do like the way they, at least on the design. Fortunately, we haven't had any customers that have had to use it. We haven't had any that had their home destroyed and they were in the Family Safe. But if you had to pick one, that's one that I know that we've worked with and around in the past, and I like the way they do their business with customers.
Okay. So we have a question about finishes and whether they all need to come from the design center, or can customers bring their own, such as doors or light fixtures?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the short answer is we need to be providing it. Now, does that mean that it has to be something that you see in our design center? Not necessarily. We've tried to give you enough options in our design center to be able to customize the home, but not make it so overwhelming that you can't make a decision because there's too much going on. There's other products that the manufacturers that we have in our design center offer that we may not necessarily be showing in our design center. So what I encourage you to do is bring your design consultant an idea of what you want and let us source it through one of our vendors. We're probably going to get as good or better price on it that you would get buying it one-off. We're definitely opposed to buying something off of like Amazon or one of those places like that and using it, because every time that has happened, it always gets into who's at fault when something goes wrong. Where was it damaged? Why doesn't it work? Is it work because it wasn't installed right or because the manufacturer, and you're having to chase them down someplace? Whereas if we source it through one of our vendors and we're installing and control the whole process, there's never a question. If it doesn't work, it's on us. We come out and fix it, replace it, do whatever we got to do. So bring us your ideas. What I would say, let us try and source it. We have some very large suppliers that can source about anything you could possibly imagine. So give us a shot at sourcing it, and it's going to be a much smoother process.
Okay. Lowell is asking if we require workman's compensation for our trades.
All right. So, that's a great question, Lowell. I know we do. So we have to do workman's comp on our own employees. That's something that we do. We do require that they have insurance. They have to have general liability insurance. I believe it would be up to them if they're workman's comp, but they're not employees of ours. So we wouldn't be carrying workman's comp on the trades because the trades are independent contractors. So whether they have workman's comp on their own employees is between them and the state of Texas, I would imagine. It's not something that we would impose or could not do on them. So we carry workman's comp for our employees, so like me, Dawn, our building superintendents, our sales consultants, our stakeout superintendents, our warranty technicians, of course, but they're employees of Tilson.
Okay, that makes sense. Tim is asking about our typical deposit fee and at what point do you pay?
Great question, Tim. So our deposit is $1,500. It's a $1,500 non-refundable deposit. It actually does go towards your closing costs. So you do get that money back at the end when the house is completed. It's credited to you. We require that before we will start an agreement. So we don't require it to sit down and do design consultation. We don't require it to sketch out plans for you and price those out completely, because you're going to have all that before you're going to want to enter into an agreement, of course. So we'll price all that stuff out. And then when you say, yep, that's the house I want, that's the price I want it for, I'm ready to move forward, at that point in time when we start to enter into an agreement is when you would pay. So it is before we will draw the full set of plans. We won't draw the full set of plans without a deposit. We don't charge for those plans, but we won't send it off to our design drafting department to start doing work on it until we have a deposit in place. Great question.
Okay. Michelle is asking if we include landscaping in our home prices. So
Michelle, I would say it depends on what price you got. So if you're looking at the base prices that are on our website, for instance, those are not going to include well, they do include final grades, drainage, all that kind of good stuff, but they're not going to include like sod and sprinkler system and things like that. And the reason is because we never know what size piece of property we're building on. Are we building on a 50-foot lot like a gentleman was asking about earlier? Are we building on 500 acres? How much sod do you want? So what we can do, and what we have programs set up in some of our locations, like Texas Grand Ranch specifically, we do have landscaping packages there, kind of 3 levels of landscaping packages, for instance, of how much is included and what size irrigation system and sod and plants and all that kind of good stuff. But it's not going to be in the prices that are on the website, the base price of the website. Good question, though.
Okay. Natalia has one more question about flooring. If she can choose to have a concrete overlay, and then also a question about building a pool.
All right. So Natalia, I'm not familiar really with concrete overlay. The only concrete overlay I know about is if a mistake has been made and you have to put concrete over top of other concrete, but we do offer stained concrete if that's what we're talking about. We do offer stained concrete as a flooring option. It's depending on what level of where it's going in the house. It actually doesn't cost. It costs no more in some places and very little in others. And then building a pool. What are your options? Well, your options are whoever you want to build a pool. So Tilson doesn't build pools, and we don't have preferred pool contractors that we use. We highly recommend you have that done after the home is completed, when you've had more time to kind of figure out how you're going to use the space, how far away from the home you want the pool to actually be, how your landscaping is going to play out. But we have had some customers that do build pools during the construction process. It can get kind of tricky because you got contracts on top of each other. We find a lot of pool contractors aren't really familiar with working in and around septic systems, water wells. So you want to be leery of that. Ask those questions of the pool contractor, because we don't want them tearing something up of yours that's already in place, so that you're going to be needing to use that's critical, like your water or your septic system. But yep, we would discuss it depending on your area of how to proceed properly with a pool contractor. What other questions do we have, Dawn, or did we get them all?
That actually was the last question, so we got them all.
All right. Well, hey, thank every single one of you for joining us today. We're so grateful that you spent part of your Saturday with us. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to us on all of our various channels. Of course, we have our Instagram page. We have the Facebook page here where you are. Every single one of our design center locations, our website, www.tilsonhomes.com. Come to us there. We'll answer all the questions we can. We want to help you guys get all the information you can and build your dream home out on your property. And we hope to soon make you part of the Tilson family. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.